Okay, yeah, so we'll make a start. My name is Joe Gamble. I'm the Sport Welfare Officer at Hertfordshire. And hopefully what you're all here for is a webinar around mental health in sport, in partnership with Minds and Karen, who's going to be delivering that session shortly. I'm just going to go over a couple things around the webinar series, future ones we've got coming up, things to know for your diary. And also, if this is your first time coming into contact with our network and us as sport welfare officers, just a little bit about us. So I'll only take up about 5 minutes just to go over that, and then I'll pass you over to Karen. So if I just move on my slide here. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're part of the Sport Welfare Officer Network, and that network is made up of 63 sport welfare officers up and down the country. Typically, there's sort of 1 to 2 per region, and we're here to support and assist clubs, and particularly club welfare officers, just help create safer environments, more inclusive club cultures, and just better experience for children, young people, and adults across sport. We're here to add capacity. We're here to add expertise to what is already a great network of safeguarding professionals, whether they're NGBs or club welfare officers themselves. And we sit within an active partnership. And to that, there is 43 active partnerships across the country. So there's probably one within your local area. I'll go on to the one for your county shortly. I've just mentioned, as I say, we're based in active partnerships. This money's come for, or the funding has come from Sport England. So we're working sort of side by side with NGBs to essentially support you, and those 4 on there: connect, offer support, raise awareness, and enable. So what we can offer you is, as I mentioned, expertise, but also we offer training. We can connect you with other club welfare officers. We have networks of our own if you're looking to connect with other basketball clubs, hockey clubs, netball clubs, anything like that, or across sports. We're also looking at connecting safeguarding in and out of sports, so connecting you to a local LADO or children's safeguarding boards, things like that. We are here to try and build up that network and give you sort of a wider connection within safeguarding. As I mentioned, we can also offer training, whether that be safeguarding and protection children courses, time to listen courses, webinars such as this, and I'll go on to in a minute the other webinars we've got lined up for 2025. But a whole host of different opportunities and levels of support really for you and anyone in your club. It doesn't just have to be the club welfare officer. If it's the chair, anyone within the committee, a coach, we can here to support you, just create that more inclusive environment if that's something that you feel you might need support with. See, we've still got a few coming in, so I'm just gonna amazing. That's a little bit about what we do. As I mentioned, this is part of sort of a wider piece of work in terms of the network, and we've come together as an East region. So you're looking, my slides have stopped working. You're looking at these 6 counties. So you've got Bedfordshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Hertfordshire, and then Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And those areas, hopefully you're fitting into one of those joining the call. If you're not familiar with your local sport welfare officer, their emails are up on the screen there and names. Please feel free to contact us on the back of this. We will all send you a follow-up email after this session with the recording of today, any notes and any slides that might be relevant. So please feel free to reach out back to us, connect with us. We'd be happy to have a conversation with any of you about what we can do to help. So as I say, this will get sent out afterwards, so don't worry about writing down the email address right now. You will get that afterwards. As I mentioned, this is actually part of a wider series. We're running 4 webinars throughout 2025. This is the first one, as I mentioned, on mental health in sport. We've got 3 more lined up just on your screen there. As I say, this will get sent out to you. We don't have registration links right now, but what I would say is just save the date, jot it down in your diary. We'll be sending out the links as soon as possible, particularly for the next one around disability inclusion. So please feel free, sign up to that, share that with your network, share that within your club. We welcome anyone from sport and physical activity to come and join these and just learn a little bit more about those particular topics. So yeah, please feel free to write these down, and we'll share these links out as and when they're created. I believe that is it. And Karen, I'm going to pass over to you. So Karen, from Mind, she's a physical activity consultant. I believe she also was in the sort of making of this spot support signpost work. So really knowledgeable, really passionate about the work, and hopefully be able to take you through all the different elements of this to be able to help you with yourself or other people's mental health in sport. So what I'll do is I will flip over and stop sharing right now and bring Karen onto the screen, take myself off and pass over to you, Karen.
Brilliant. Can I just check? Can you see the slides? Is that all okay?
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. And not my notes. Brilliant. Okay. So welcome. Lovely to see so many people attending. So as Joe said, my name's Karen Shaw and I work with the physical activity team at Mind. And again, as Joe mentioned, I was involved in developing and sort of helping to co-create some of the resources here that you're going to see today. So in this session, we're going to be exploring spot support signpost and how you can help someone who may be struggling with their mental health. In no way does this session, what we're going to be going through, make you a mental health expert, but what it will help you to do is help somebody who may be struggling with their mental health. And I guess what we're going to be doing really is looking at what are those small everyday things, everyday activities that actually can help somebody that may be struggling with their mental health sort of alongside you. So during the session, we will be talking about mental health. We're not going to be going into a lot of detail, but if there's anything that comes up that triggers you in any way, or you feel you want to take some space and time away from the screen, then I would invite you to do that. If you do need to do that, all I would ask is maybe you just put a message, maybe a private message in the chat to say Joe, Charlie or myself, just to let us know that you're doing that and if you come back. But I can also say that, so also let you know that there is the Samaritans and they're available 24 hours a day on 116 123. And also there is Mind's info line, so just go to Mind's website on mind.org.uk. So that's just really if anything does come up for you that you need to take that time and that space. So what is it that we're going to be looking at? So what I hope this evening that you'll end up achieving is an increased understanding of spot support signposts, and I'll explain what we mean by that. So hopefully an increased knowledge of how you can spot the signs that someone may be struggling with their mental health. Also increase your confidence in how to support somebody if you feel able to do that. And then also an increased knowledge of how and when to signpost somebody to that support. And we'll also provide you with some information about some resources that we have available that you can download and take away with you. So that's the aim. That's what I hope we achieve by the end of this session. So to understand the impact that this session has, what we'd like to do is just really do a poll. Actually, I'm now just seeing if I can see the chat here. So I'm just going to give you a link in the chat, I hope. Actually, I don't know if I can do that. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I think I'm new to this one. Right, hold on 1 second. I'm just going to stop sharing. Oh, technicalities. I'm going to share a link. This is a poll and it's really just for us to get an understanding of your confidence in spot support and signposting somebody with mental health issues. So I'm just going to post that in the chat. Hopefully that's come up. It's absolutely anonymous. We can't see who actually enters that. I don't see it. Just goes to a Microsoft form. So just invite you, if you don't mind, just to click on that and just enter that. And what I'll do is repeat that at the end so we can just get some idea of an understanding. Now, hopefully, I'm now going to share back again. Okay. Okay, hopefully that works. And I'm sure somebody will tell me if you can't see any slides. So there's just 3 questions on the poll, just asking you how to rate your knowledge and your confidence and knowledge of signposting. Okay, so just give you a few seconds really just to do that. Okay, so while you're just filling in that form, what we're going to be doing is following somebody called Beth's story throughout this session. So what you can see on this screen is a quote from Beth, and we've changed Beth's name just to anonymise her and to protect her identity. So Beth is somebody who's got lived experience of mental health, and Beth actually supported us co-creating the resources that you can see here today. So Beth was actually part of that process. So Beth said, I had a choice to make when I nervously went along to my first yoga class. Should I trust the yoga teacher and share how my mental health may impact my practice? Now we could substitute that my first yoga class to my first netball class, my first football match, my first basketball session, my first running session. And we can say, should I trust that instructor and share my mental health with that person? So it's quite an important question that Beth needs to ask and isn't sure what to do. So we're going to follow Beth through this session. So I think it's really important for us to, I guess, take a moment just to consider that, 1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health problem at some point each year. And many people will experience the same feelings that Beth is having as to, do I share that with the person that I'm having that coaching session with, that running session, that football session? Do I let them know about my mental health? So, but what we can do, I think, is help Beth understand that question and be able to answer it with, yes, I can, by you understanding how you can spot the signs that somebody may be struggling, support them if you need to, and then also signpost them. So we're going to follow Beth throughout. So I keep mentioning spot, support, signpost. So what do I mean by it? Well, spot, support, signpost breaks it down into how you can actually support somebody with their mental health problems. So we'll be looking at the spot, the signs that someone may be struggling. How do we do that? We'll be looking at how we can support them, and that's if you feel able to do so. And then we'll be looking at how can you signpost that person to the help and support that they need. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, doesn't require you to be, a mental health expert, because it really is focused on small everyday things that we may do with people that are close to us, friends, and it just provides a duty of care, because we have a duty of care to those people around us. So we're going to take you through each of those steps. So spot is the first step of spot, support, signpost, and spotting the signs of somebody struggling with their mental health can be really challenging. We're all unique, we're all different, we all have different ways of either showing or not talking about our experiences. So if we go back to Beth's story, Beth said she wasn't sure if she could tell her yoga teacher or her netball coach about her mental health problems. So what I'd like to ask you to do, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to see it, but I will be able to see it after, but just everyone else will be able to see this. Can you just put in the chat function, what signs do you think Beth's yoga teacher may spot if Beth is struggling with her mental health? So we're going to make an assumption here that Beth has been doing a yoga class for a number of weeks, or maybe a football session for a number of weeks. And what are the signs that you think that coach you may notice in Beth to say that she may be struggling with her mental health? So if you could just put that in the chat function, that would be great. Actually, while you're doing that, I will just see if I can view the chat function.
Karen, if not, I can read some out for you if you like.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thanks, Joe. I can't see how I can do that. I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah, we've got them flying in already. So we've got change of behaviour.
Yep.
She does not interact with others.
Yeah.
Being reserved and quiet, not engaging.
Yeah.
Acting withdrawn, not turning up to the session as regularly. Changes physically, socially, missing sessions, etc. Lack of eye contact, anxious to come to class. Withdrawn from the group, overreacting potentially, lateness, going to the back of the class and being quite reserved.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Feeling anxious, yeah, they're still coming, so feel free to stop me.
Okay, no, that's
Unable
really
to focus is one more.
fabulous. Let them continue to flow. That's absolutely brilliant.
That's great.
Actually, I'm not sure I need to do this session. This is great. Thank you so much for putting all that information in the chat for me, and keep it going because it's really useful for everybody to see that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. All the things that you're saying about. So some of the things that we'll notice, and you've put them in the chat already. Behaviour. And the sort of things that we may notice that Beth is behaving differently to usual is maybe not attending social activities that she usually attends. So it may be that before a basketball session, you usually have a chat before you start. Maybe Beth stopped doing that. Maybe after a netball session, you go and have a coffee somewhere or go for a drink or something, and maybe Beth has stopped doing that. So yeah, maybe not attending social activities. Maybe missing or avoiding sessions, which you've already said. Yeah, she may have always been coming to every session, and now she's actually avoiding some of those. Maybe you're noticing reduced motivation. Maybe Beth was somebody who was, really dedicated, really motivated, really concentrated throughout, and maybe you're seeing less of that, is less enthusiastic. You may notice that Beth is actually exercising more than usual. And this is something that we've actually got a lot of resources on our website about over-exercising. So you may notice that actually Beth is talking about doing, saying a lot more running than usual, a lot more fitness than usual, a lot more yoga than usual. And maybe that's all she's doing. It's actually taking over her life. And you mentioned this, somebody said about isolating herself, yes, staying at the back of the room or the back of the court, so keeping herself away from other people. And not enjoying the activities that she usually likes. So again, it may be the actual session that you're running, it may be other activities that that Beth does that she says she's just not enjoying it or just not attending. So a whole host of different things around behaviour. Also around her mood. You may notice that actually Beth is being quieter or more withdrawn than usual. And again, I know you put that in the chat. On the flip side, she may be louder or more energetic than usual. She may also be quite tearful. She may say that she's feeling sad. May say that she's feeling quite anxious or worried. And also there may be extreme mood swings. So maybe really quiet at one point and maybe really extrovert and loud and energetic at another point. So it's noticing a change in her usual mood, how Beth normally is. So we've had behaviour, we've had mood, also thoughts and feelings. So it may be that actually on the more serious end of it, it may be that Beth has expressed some thoughts of self-harm or suicide. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It may be that Beth mentions that she feels trapped or hopeless. So it's listening to the words that she's talking about, that she's saying. Maybe she's more forgetful than usual. And maybe she's confused or got disordered thoughts. Yeah, not sure what she's saying. Maybe her thoughts are coming out in a sort of confused and rambling way. Maybe Beth is having difficulty making decisions. And maybe she's finding it hard to concentrate, which we've also spoken about before. So some of those thoughts, which are sometimes difficult to notice, but you may pick them up if you're talking to her or hear her talking to some of her people around her. So as well as behaviour, as well as mood, thoughts and feelings, we've also got habits that we may see a change in. So it may be that Beth is drinking or smoking or vaping more than usual. Now that may be difficult to notice, because that may not be something that you actually do in your sessions, but actually you may notice there may be a smell of alcohol, there may be a smell of tobacco, or she may be talking about the fact that she's drinking or smoking more than normal. Also sleeping too much or too little, and also changes in appetite or weight. And again, that may be noticeable, it may be that she's talking about that. So in addition to that, we've got the physical things that we change, which again, I know was talked about, mentioned in the chat. So it may be that you notice that Beth is a little bit more unkempt than normal. She's neglecting her self-care. Maybe there's some unexplained headaches, stomach aches, pains. She's talking about those aches that she's getting. Maybe Beth says that she's feeling sick or nauseous. Also tearful, crying, feeling quite agitated, and also appearing tired. So you can probably notice that some of them overlap in terms that you may physically see that someone's looking tired. You may also notice that they're talking about feeling tired and not getting enough sleep, or having so much sleep and yet they still feel tired. So there's a whole host of different things that you may notice in Beth. Interestingly, you may have none of those. It may not be obvious that Beth is actually struggling with her mental health. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're all different as to how we actually show how we're feeling, and some of us may mask it better than others. So that's why it's really important that you notice how Beth is on a regular basis. You build a good relationship with people within the groups that you run, so it can help you better spot the signs. But it may also mean that there are times when you don't spot the signs, but it's about creating a culture and a climate in which that person feels able to say something if they need to. So we're assuming here that Beth, as I say, has been going to a number of sessions, and that you have noticed that there are some of these signs, and you do believe that actually Beth may be struggling with her mental well-being. So what do we then do? Yeah, so we've spotted some of the signs, or we think that there may be something that Beth is struggling with. So how do we then support her? And when we talked about at the beginning, it's not about being a mental health expert. It's actually about just having a conversation, and it's about really small actions, small behaviours that can really make such a big, huge difference. So I'm going to take you through what we mean by support. So what we've done is broken down the word support, hopefully in a way that can help you remember some of the key points when you're actually supporting somebody. So the first S for support is about seeing if urgent help is needed. So we've noticed that Beth is struggling, and what we want to know is whether we need to actually help urgently, and we'll talk about what we do with that and how we can help that. It's also about understanding the best time and place for a conversation, and we'll go into a little bit of detail about that. It's also about posing open-ended questions, so using some of those questions around, where, what, why, how. And it's also about providing validation for Beth's feelings and experiences. What Beth is feeling is real. It's real to her. So we want to validate that. The O is to offer emotional support and show empathy. And we want to reassure Beth that it's good to talk. And I think that's really appropriate. We've got Time to Talk Day coming up next Thursday, which is a campaign to help reduce and remove stigma around having a conversation around mental health. So we want to reassure her that it is good to talk. And then what we want to do is thank Beth and summarise what we may be doing, how we're going to signpost Beth to signpost to some help. So what I'm now going to do is just go through each of those, just to provide a little bit more detail around those. Now, this acronym can be used for absolutely for anybody, and that can be adults, but also for young people. However, as you know, if you do have a concern about somebody who's 18 or under, then you also need to inform safeguarding and welfare officers. So there is another level that may be required. So I'm just going to take you through the support. So what we want to do, the S stands for see if urgent help is needed. So here we want to look at, do we believe that actually Beth is at risk? And if she is, what do we need to do about that? So if you feel that Beth, or whoever it is that you spotted the signs that someone is struggling, if you feel that that person is at risk of harm, either to themselves or to somebody else, then you call 999. So immediately you just call 999. Now what you would also do is, if you don't believe that that person is safe by themselves, staying by themselves, then you'd want to stay with her. So you'd stay with Beth, or you'd make sure that somebody is with Beth when you dial 999, or you take her to A&E and you make sure that somebody stays with her. Okay, so this is if Beth is at risk or somebody else is at risk of harm from Beth herself. Now, if you think Beth can keep herself safe, yeah, then you might help her to make an emergency GP appointment. And I'm very aware that GP appointments at the moment can be quite challenging sometimes in terms to make those. So, but it is about trying to help her to do that. If that isn't possible, then there is the helpline of the Samaritans, which I've mentioned. So that's 116 123. And that may be staying with Beth to help her make that call or giving her the information about it. There is Shout, which is a text messaging service. Some people prefer to use text messaging rather than actually speaking to somebody. Or you can call NHS 111, and there is a dedicated mental health support line for that. So that's if there isn't an immediate emergency and we don't need to call 999 or take Beth to A&E. So the U of support is about understanding the best time and place for a conversation. Yeah, so we've spotted the signs that Beth is struggling. It's not an emergency, but we need to have a conversation with Beth. And having a conversation is really important, but it does need to happen at the right time and the right place. So again, I'm going to ask you to use the chat function, and Joe, I'm going to ask you for your help again on this, just to say what's being put into the chat. But I'd just like you to think about, when do you think would be the best time to have a conversation with Beth? And where do you think the best place would be to have that conversation? So just give you a minute or so just to put in the chat, when do you think would be the best time to have that conversation with Beth? And where would be the best place to have that conversation?
I think as well, just for everyone that's been using the Q&A, I might have fixed it, so feel free to try the chat function again if that is easier, but we'll still monitor the Q&A.
Okay, anything coming through on the chat?
Yes, going quite fast. Let me scroll up to the top. We've got away from the main group, ideally after the session, not before, because you could end up being rushed by the session. Not in direct earshot of others, away from others again. Before she leaves, after others have gone, maybe in a private room. Yep, somewhere private. At the end of the session, quite familiar ones coming in, somewhere familiar to her but also private. At the end of the session, yet away from the main group. When there's no deadline, she or you have somewhere else to be. Sort of follows along from that, probably after the session, not before.
Okay.
After class, somewhere private. Yep, end of the session, a quiet place, informal atmosphere, away from others, face to face. Yeah, lots of similar themes coming out there.
Fabulous. That's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much. That's great. Actually, what I'm now going to do, hopefully, actually, what this session is doing is actually just reassuring you that you do know how to spot the signs, you do know how to support somebody, because you're absolutely right. What we want to look at is, where is the best time, and it is going to be before or after the session. It's only ever probably going to be before the session if somebody else is maybe running the session and maybe Beth is distressed and you want to take her away from that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. After the session, away from other people. It may be that actually after the session isn't the right time, but you want to make a time for when it is. So you may actually chat to her after the session and say, let's meet up tomorrow, or let's have a call later. Or it may be that you want to, it's thinking about when is the best time. What you don't want to do is best to rush off and you haven't had that conversation. So it's thinking about how can you do that. So it may be that if you've missed Beth after the session, that you may message her and then say, let's have a conversation, and I'll talk a bit more detail about that. And you're absolutely right. Where is it? It's a quiet, informal space away from people, a private space, which came up in the chat. A private, I think the lovely one someone said about a familiar place to her, but private. I think that's a really good one. It's somewhere where Beth may feel comfortable. So it may be, that's somewhere where you can have coffee that Beth is familiar with. It may be that there's a bench that you can just sit on. It may be actually just walking side by side and having a chat, that can be a really good way to open up a conversation, because we're not actually facing each other. And actually when we're walking, that can be really help people to open up and talk. So yeah, thinking about where is the best time, where is the best place. In terms of, so we've now found where the right place is. We want to think about what sort of questions, how can we enable Beth to actually open up and have a conversation. So we want to pose open-ended questions. So the sort of things that questions we want to ask is, how have you been feeling since I last saw you? Have you felt like this before? Which is a closed question, but you're following over what happened, what helped. And I think this for me is the one, is can you tell me more about how you're feeling? Yeah, so, or tell me more about how you're feeling, and then you can kind of probe a little bit further. And then it's about giving Beth your full attention. So it's about actively listening to what Beth is saying. And the way we're going to be doing that is making eye contact. So if we are sitting across from her, maybe having a coffee, or sitting next to her on a bench, is actually looking at Beth. If we're walking side by side, obviously that's more challenging, but it is actually acknowledging and actually looking. It's actually being patient and not interrupting Beth. So sometimes there may be pauses, there may be quiet periods, and it's about allowing that quiet, that silent time to just go, to just be. Just allow Beth to gather her thoughts and then open up. And if nothing comes out, it may be just little prompts. Tell me how you're feeling. And repeating what Beth has said to check you've understood. So you may want to say, so what you're saying is that you feel really tearful all the time. You're finding it difficult to wake up in the morning. So it's just really repeating back just to check that you've understood what Beth has said to you. So the second P is about providing validation for Beth's feelings and experiences. So it's really important that we don't assume that we know how Beth is feeling. So often we can say, I understand how you're feeling. Well, that may not be helpful, because we may not absolutely understand how Beth is feeling. I may get depression, I may have anxiety, but my experience of that may be very different to Beth's experience. So what we really want to do is reassure Beth that her feelings are valid. They're real for Beth. Whatever it is that Beth is feeling, those are real feelings for her. So it's okay to feel how you do. Yeah, it may not be nice, but it's okay. Those are the feelings that Beth has. And also what we want to do is guide the conversation. Let Beth guide the conversation. So we don't want to assume what Beth is saying. We want her to tell us what she's saying. So if in doubt, ask. If we don't really understand what Beth is saying, ask her to clarify. What do you mean by that? So really just ask Beth and not assume. The O of support is about offer emotional support and show empathy. So I think the one thing we don't want to do is try and fix Beth's problems. I think as individuals, as humans, we always want to try and solve it. We want to make it better. But that isn't our role. It's actually about listening to Beth and being there for her. So I think, as I said at the beginning, you're not expected to be a mental health expert. We're there to provide that emotional support for Beth. So we're not there to try and fix her problems. And it's also really important not to have those kind of unhelpful cliches, I would say. Sometimes we might just say, well, don't worry about it. Don't stress. We may say, you're just having a bad day. And the one, don't, pull yourself together. Those are unhelpful things to say. These are real feelings for Beth, and we want to offer that emotional support to her. And show empathy. So we're not saying we understand, but we're empathizing with what Beth is saying. So we say, appreciate this must be challenging. Or we may say, thank you for sharing this with me. So this quote here was actually shared for us by one of the people who helped co-create the resources that I'm sharing with you today. And the quote is that generally, the most supportive people are those who listen to understand, don't try and solve the problem, but are really hearing you. And for me, that's just critical. It's about listening, actively listening to the person, hearing what they're saying, and then we will be signposting them to support. So the R on support is about reassuring that individual that it's good to talk. Yeah. So it may have been really challenging for Beth to have opened up. So we want to reassure her that it is good to talk. So we might say something like, I'm really glad you spoke to me. I know it might have been difficult to talk about this, but you've taken a really huge step today. Thank you. And don't assume that Beth will want to be signposted to support, and we'll talk a bit about that. It's important to ask Beth if she would like this. Yeah, because it may well be that Beth has had some negative experience in the past from being signposted. And also we want to empower Beth to decide what to do next. Yeah, so we're there to offer that emotional support, but we want to empower Beth to make that decision about what she wants to do. The T of support is to thank them and summarise. So we've had a conversation with Beth, and what we want to do is just really check that Beth has the support after the session. So we would have thanked them for opening up to us, maybe summarise what the conversation was, and then we want to check that she has got the support following our conversation or following that session. So we may say, if we've had the conversation after the session, is there going to be somebody there at home for you? Or what are you going to do after the session? Or what are you going to do after this call? What are you going to do after our meeting? Yeah, just checking that Beth has got something she do. If she doesn't know what she's going to do, is what would help you? This is just asking her those sort of questions. And as I said, just summarise the conversation. So you've told me you're going to speak to your GP, or you've told me you're going to message the shout service, or you're going to contact NHS 111. And I'm going to email you details of Local Mind, or I'm going to email you details of some support services that I'm aware of. So just summarise so everyone knows what is happening. But also, I think critically, there's no such thing as a perfect conversation. We really won't get it 100% right. And even if we get it 10% right, it's 10% more than not having that conversation. So whatever conversation you have, even if you feel at the end of it that Beth maybe doesn't want to be signposted, just having that conversation, acknowledging those feelings that Beth is having will have made a huge difference. So what I just want to talk about is extra support that you can provide if you're able to. So support, as in the acronym, that's really what we're advising you to provide to those people that you're providing those sessions to. So we're spotting the signs, we're supporting them by having a conversation with them. But if you're able to provide extra support for someone like Beth, then that's even better, because sometimes people may have a long wait for support. And they may still be struggling with their mental health, even though they've actually been signposted. So if you do feel able to provide extra help, it's really about checking in with Beth. So when you next see her at the session, saying, how are you doing? How are you feeling since we last spoke? So again, remembering that needs to be in the right time and the right place. It's about being flexible. And again, I'm aware that this may be very different depending on the sessions that you're running. If it's a course, it just depends. Can Beth miss some sessions? It's about being flexible and allowing her to attend when she does feel able to attend. And then also it's creating maybe a space where you can have a well-being space. Now, this isn't about, building another room or creating another a building. It may be that you run a session in a hall. Is there another room nearby that can be a quiet space that somebody can go to if they're finding it difficult? Is there a space in the hall or in the space where you have the session in the court where someone can just go to actually be quiet? I know when I did a dance class that in the corner we just had some cushions, and if anyone felt like they just needed usually it was just physically tired, but if mentally you were too overwhelmed, you could just go into that corner, have a sit down, and it was fine. And it was made known to everybody. So, you could just go there if you needed some space. And it's not just useful for people with mental health struggles. It may be people that are neurodiverse, or just anyone who may find something overwhelming or just need that space away. So it's just thinking about, is there somewhere where you can have that extra room? I know when we've run events at Mind, we always try and have an extra room that's available that people can just go to if they find it difficult. And I suppose finally, it's about asking those people that are attending your sessions, ask the Beths, ask Beth, what would help you? How can we help you? What are the things that will enable you and support you with your mental health struggles? So just ask. And crucially, don't forget about your own self-care. I think we're all, it can be really rewarding to help somebody, to support somebody who is struggling with their mental well-being, but it can be emotionally overwhelming. It can also be time-consuming. So it's really important that we do look after ourselves, and I'm going to explore that shortly as well. So we've spotted the signs that Beth may be struggling. We've had a conversation with Beth, and what we now want to do is signpost Beth to some support and help. So what I mentioned earlier is that we don't want to assume that Beth will want this. Not everyone will want to be signposted. As I mentioned, they may have had a negative experience in the past. But what we want to be able to do is provide that information. And I'll talk a little bit about what information is available. So if we just revisit Beth's story, so thinking about Beth, that was worried about opening up. You've had a conversation with Beth now, and you now want to signpost her to get some support. And just be, again, really useful in the chat. If you can just put down, where do you think, what mental health support services do you know of that maybe we could signpost Beth to? So just what services are you aware of in your region, in your areas, that you think you could signpost Beth to for her, to support her with her mental health? And if you could just pop that in the chat, that would be brilliant. And again, Joe, I'm going to depend on you.
I'm here. We've got school nurses, IAPT, Mind, Feel Good Suffolk, Hearts Mind Network, Mind West Norfolk. It's going quick now. CAMHS. I assume that's an acronym. School Welfare Officers. NHS Norfolk. Talking Therapies. CHUMS. Your Club Welfare Officer. Mental Health First Aider. Young People in Norfolk. Samaritan's Mind. Beds Mind Network. Samaritans again. Local GP. Sports governing bodies. And school DSL. I think we slowed down there. There's quite a few.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. I don't really need to do the next bit, actually. All the information is in the chat, which is fantastic. You're absolutely right on all of those. So let me just go through some of them. I mean, some of the things you talked about, CAMS, the IAP service, which is the talking therapy services. School nurses, Samaritans, local minds, etc. So all of those. So what we have in mind and on our web pages, a whole range of resources which you can download, and they're also editable as well. Always worry about that one. I always think I'm going to say editable. You can edit them and actually put your own branding and your own details on them. So the sort of things that you will be signposting Beth to, you've mentioned a lot of these already, but Mind's info line. So that's available from 9 till 6 weekdays, and that's got a whole range of information. By dialing them, they'll provide a lot of support. Also the Samaritans, which you mentioned, on 116 123. The Shout text service, which I've mentioned, say some people do prefer just to text, not just, but to text. We also have Childline, so that's if someone's 18 or under that you can call. Also the NHS 111, and if you call 111 and press 2, that takes it to a dedicated mental health support line. Also, we've got the Hub of Hope. So I love this website. You just put in your postcode and it provides information of all local services that are near to you, and it's building all the time. And it will have many of the ones that you've just talked about, local CAM services, that's your children's mental health service, local talking therapy services, local minds, and also local groups that may be specific to the area that you're actually working in or supporting in. And also, somebody mentioned GPs. Yeah, there is a website there where you can actually find a GP if somebody isn't registered with a GP. I do have the caveat that I know sometimes people can struggle to get the appointments, but it is really important to contact them if you need to, and to signpost to that. We've also got Side by Side, which is an online peer support community within Mind. And you will have all the local ones that, again, you've put in the chat that you will know of. Now, something like this can be shared on your social media if you have that, maybe quarterly, just to remind people of the support that's out there. You may, if you have a hall where you can actually put some notices up, it's useful to have these put up onto a notice board or onto a website or anywhere where people can access them. So as I say, this is available where you can download them. Now, some people may not feel comfortable contacting this type of support. So we've just put together some other areas of support that people may want to access. So there's something called the Mix, which is for people under the age of 25. There's also Age UK for maybe older people. Also Black African Asian Therapy Network, and also BAYO for the Black community. Also for Wales, and it's not relevant for this session, but if anyone is in Wales, there is a specific community advice and listening line. And then also Switchboard for the LGBTQI plus community. And also there is the Helpline Partnership Directory that provides a load of support, lots of support, tailored support on their website. So again, there may be more local ones to you. It's worth finding out what's local to you. Again, Hub of Hope may be a good way to find that, and then putting that together so that you can actually just promote that and provide that. On our website, which I've mentioned, and I'll provide the link to this to Joe and Charlie afterwards so that we can send that out to you. There is actually a video, which is this. It's actually I think it's about just under 4 minutes. And it actually talks about the spot support signpost in 4 minutes. I probably could have just done that actually. I probably could have just shown you the video for 4 minutes and that would have been it. But if you just need a reminder, it's a really good video, and it's a really good film just to share with people as well. Share with other people in the group, in your groups, as to how you can spot the sign, support and signpost. And then this here is a video of a text conversation between a coach and a participant. So it just gives you some idea of the sort of questions or conversation that you may have with somebody if it's through a text messaging, as opposed to maybe having a face-to-face conversation with them. So again, I would definitely recommend accessing those. I mentioned that all our graphics are editable, and the sort of things that we've got are all here and which I've been sort of sharing with you. So I say please do access that. So in terms of Beth, what really we're doing is we're spotting those signs, we're supporting her with a conversation, and then what we'll be doing is sharing this information with Beth. I mentioned that Beth may not want to have that information, which is why it's also really important this information is shared generally. So again, if Beth says, no, I don't need any help, I'm fine, I'm going to sort it out, then it may be that you want to share information about mental health just with the whole group. As I say, that may be through a WhatsApp group, that may be through a website, that may be on a notice board, just so that that information is there, even if it's not specifically given to Beth. So we've talked quite a lot about that spot support signpost, and I mentioned about self-care and how important it is that we really do look after ourselves. So supporting someone is really rewarding. It can be time consuming, it can be emotionally overwhelming. So it is really important that we do prioritise our self-care. And I think often, certainly I know I have done for decades, is we kind of neglect that. We think it's selfish, but it isn't. And I think this quote here is so important, that self-care means giving the world the best of you instead of what is left of you. So if we have a bucket full of all the stuff that we're dealing with, and we just keep letting that bucket, some of you may know about the stress bucket, but we just keep allowing that bucket to fill up, and we don't take care of ourselves to actually manage that content, then there's nothing to give to other people. So self-care is really, really important. And I'm just going to go through a few tips really to help look after yourself. And some of the things to think about, which you'll know, but it's just really, I think sometimes we just need a reminder. So relaxing and reducing stress in whatever way you feel able to do that. And that may be connecting with nature, that may be doing the sport that you enjoy, it may be sitting reading a book, listening to music. It's all about learning a new skill, finding ways to be creative. That can be a really great way to help manage our well-being. Also about spending time in nature, which I've mentioned, and connecting with others. Sometimes when we're not feeling great, we avoid other people. So connecting with others, whether that's in a game of football, a game of tennis, or just going for a walk, or just having a cup of coffee with somebody. Keeping active, which we all know, looking after our physical health, and sleeping well. And very much that's often about avoiding screen time before we sleep. And what we've also got on our website is this great resource. It's a self-care library, and it's a library full of whole range of activities to support your own well-being and others. And I'd really encourage you, invite you to download this, have a look at this. It's got activities that go from 1 month, God, that'd be forever, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. So there's an activity, I think, really for everybody. So it's great to look after yourself, but also you may want to share that within your group. Maybe at the beginning of a session, you want to have a bit of a self-care time, or at the end of a session. So it's really, really useful. There's some breathing exercises, some grounding exercises. As I say, there's something there for everyone. Just thinking at time, we have got a short self-care exercise I'd quite like to do. It just takes a couple of minutes. Joe, is there still time to do that? Or
Yeah. This isn't meant to be finishing at 8, if that's what.
Yeah, okay, fab. Well, that'd be a really quick session. Okay. So I've got an exercise here which I'd really like to invite you to take part in. So it's entirely up to you. It's something you can also take away. So this breathing exercise I find really helpful. So I do get really anxious and really nervous about these sessions, but I also feel they're so important, which is why I do them. So before I come online, I actually do this breathing exercise, and I just invite you to take part in this. So what we're going to do, it's called the 3-5 breathing, and we're going to breathe in and count to 3 as we do it. We're then going to hold our breath for 2 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out and count to 5. So we're breathing in and then we're breathing out for longer. And we're just going to do it a few times. And what I'd invite you to do is either close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that, or you can just avert your eyes maybe to the bottom of your screen. So you're not actually looking at the screen, you may be looking at the bottom of your screen. So, and it kind of sort of like a blur, it becomes a blur. So just going to take you through that. So what I'd like you to do is just breathe in and we'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold for 2 seconds. 1, 2. Breathe out and count to 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. 2, 3. Hold. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. One last time in, 2, 3. Hold, 1, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's an exercise that you can repeat until you feel more relaxed. Let's say it's just a really useful way of calming our mind and calming those monkey thoughts that just continue to go round and round in our head at times and stop us being able to focus. So I hope you found that useful. So before we finish, I just want to revisit Beth's story. So at the start of the session, we shared Beth's quote about how she was nervous about attending her yoga class, and we could have substituted that for, basketball, football, tennis, netball, sailing, anything. And she was worried whether she should actually tell her coach, her teacher, about her mental health. So this was a real life example. So what did happen to Beth? Well, there was no need to have worried. So Beth said that the yoga teacher's support, intuition, kindness, patience, and unwavering faith in her helped to make her make so many steps forward and grow as a person. And she said, I wouldn't be where I am today without her. So I think it really highlights, this quote highlights the impact that you can have on someone. And as Spot Support Signpost, I think, has shown, it is just really small, everyday actions that make a big difference. It's just having that conversation and signposting. And if you'd like more information, that's go to our website and Spot Support Signpost, and that's where all the resources are. You can also get in touch. You can click on the QR code to actually sign up and get a monthly newsletter. And that's it, yes. So, and then a monthly newsletter, and that just provides a lot of information about mental health and physical activity. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if anybody's got any questions, I can now see the chat. If anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask me, or any reflections on what we've shared today. I think just to say, not to stop you all talking, I think from the chat, when I asked you to put in information about, how would you spot, what sort of signs would you notice, how would you support somebody, and what are the places that you would signpost, I think it was really obvious from the chat answers that you are aware of what you need to do. And it's really just, hopefully this has reassured you that what you do, or what you think you need to do, is actually the right thing.